we will always reconfigure our schedule when we have an opportunity to chat with this man. He is, of course, one of the greatest players in baseball history. He is the Hall of Famer. He is Cal Ripken Jr., and he is with us now here on GCR. Cal, it's Glenn and Paul in Baltimore. It is always great to catch up with you, sir. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Yeah, good morning. Always happy to look back because that's all I have now.
Oh, stop. You got lots going on in your life. Who are you kidding? Well, yeah, of course, we're going to talk about the 30th anniversary of the first season at Camden Yards. If I could quickly before that, it's a huge week up in Aberdeen. It's got to be wild to you, as a kid from Aberdeen, that right now, that little town in Harford County is sort of like the center of the baseball universe at the moment, right?
Well, we like to claim that, but I don't know if it's always true or not. But yeah, some exciting things are happening up in Aberdeen. The kids tournaments and being around those guys. I always said we have that beautiful warehouse-like building that's a hotel. It's a Marriott, and every once in a while it'll get late in the day. I'll stay up there, and then waking up to see the kids coming out in the field is a pretty cool use of that space. So, yeah, we get excited about baseball up there.
And obviously, Adley Rutschman being with the Ironbirds this week, which is a really, really cool thing. Cal,
I almost neglected to talk about the Ironbirds, but cause it's almost like a community take for granted, I guess, is that the community really loves the Ironbirds. We went to a longer season where the high A for the Orioles now, which you have many more dates in which the fans can come to the ballpark, and people seem to be very happy with that change.
All right, Cal, the 30th anniversary of the first season at Camden Yards. I got to address something because we were chatting with Rick Sutcliffe a couple of weeks back, and he says that you and he are the only two people that own a certain piece of memorabilia. Do you know what it is that he's referring to?
No.
Okay. I know you and I have talked about a lot of memorabilia over the years. He says there's a certain picture of the field, and it's only you and he, and you both have it autographed. Does that ring a bell at all?
That's quite possible, but is it when we got ready to take the field? Everyone standing on the top step of the dugout?
That's the one. Exactly right.
Right. So I don't know how. Did he arrange for the photographer? Did he? I don't know how it is a unique piece of memorabilia, though, unless there are the only two copies.
That's what he suggested, is that you and he had the only two copies that were autographed. That was what was the big deal. Of course, it could be that this is 30 years later, Cal. There could be a lot of fuzzy memories involved with some of these things.
Having gone through a lot of my stuff in boxes during this COVID time, anything can happen. You look back, and my memory sometimes is really clear. I can go right back to this spot that something happened. But some things I look at and I go, what is this? Where is this from?
What were your first memories of seeing the park, of walking out, of realizing this was home now? What were the first things that jumped out at you?
I got over the sadness of losing Memorial Stadium. Because, for me growing up as a kid, watching the Orioles in their really successful years and seeing Brooks Robinson make those plays and seeing him jump in the air when they celebrated the World Series win, I kept thinking that this is sacred ground, and why in the world do we have to make this go away? But I will tell you, the first step that you take into Camden Yards, my first impression was, let's move on from Memorial Stadium. This is the best thing I've ever seen. And it's kind of cool because you're worried about losing the history of baseball or the Oriole baseball. But it almost felt like baseball had been played there before, in Camden Yards. And it was just a wonderful design, a wonderful feel. And I immediately forgot about Memorial Stadium one step into Camden Yards.
Cal Ripken is with us here on Glenn Clark Radio. Cal, you say you knew immediately. You knew, because I think what you alluded to, a lot of people have forgotten about, which was most of the city didn't want a new ballpark. It was not very popular to replace Memorial Stadium, but it did not take you long to realize just how special this place was going to be.
No, I think the first really feeling there was the MVP award was presented to me in sort of a little ceremony in Camden Yards. And the ballpark was finished, but they still had some tweaks to be made. I guess it was around November, in that for that first year. But when you walk in, you just had this feeling that this structure had a couple of decades worth of baseball already. It just felt like this was a baseball place. And many of the stadiums that we saw built, before Camden Yards, were more the multi-purpose ones, transformational from football to baseball. But this one really was a baseball park, and you really felt that first second you walked into it.
Did you know how it was going to change the game of baseball at that point? Did you realize, like, this is what stadiums are going to be moving forward, or was it hard to have that type of context at that point?
No, at that time it was very difficult. It was that we had a really special place, and
Yep.
nobody else really did. And then everybody tended to copy the ideas and the feeling that Camden Yards gave the ballpark. The ballpark that was built right before that was it changed from the old Comiskey to the new Comiskey, and that one was it was a nice stadium, but it felt a little sterile. It felt a little cold. It felt open. It didn't feel like an intimate space where a baseball game should be played. And so when Camden Yards came in, I think everybody immediately felt that when they came to the ballpark, and they started thinking, and at least in a design way, that they wanted to capture the spirit that Camden Yards captured.
Can you explain why it's held up, Cal? I mean, like, we've seen, as you mentioned, newer ballparks have come and gone, right? In Texas and Atlanta, places like that. Can you explain why it is that Oriole Park still feels as new today as it did in 1992?
Well, I mean, first of all, they take great care of it, the ballpark, and the field is always in immaculate condition. So, I mean, there's great pride in taking care of that ballpark, number one, from all who has a hand in that. I would say that the renovation of the warehouse, really made that special. I know that there weren't plans at first. They were going to knock down the big warehouse, and they preserved that and designed around it. And I think that element by itself and redoing the inside of that building, making it really nice, that was the key part of that, because everybody walks in and says it's a bandbox. I personally thought during my time it played very fair. Some pitchers, might say that, it was short, the ball was flying out of there. But I don't think, our team was built for home runs. And so when you look at how many home runs were hitting that ballpark, it was probably due to our team contributed mostly to the home runs. But when the visitors came in, it had this intimacy at first because the warehouse was so enormous that it felt like the playing field was smaller. But in fact, I don't believe that to be true. Now, since they put the hotel out there in left center field, I think maybe the wind currents have changed a little bit. I suspect they have, and because sometimes the ball wouldn't carry at all to the left center field because the wind would come in, and other times it would circle around and push it out and catapult the ball out that maybe you didn't quite get. But I think overall it still plays really fair. And it just feels like it's a small, intimate space.
You roped quite a few. We're talking with Cal Ripken Jr. I'm sure you guys are aware just by hearing his voice. You roped quite a few home runs to left field. What was your reaction when you heard about the plan to move the fences back?
Well, it was interesting. Mike Elias called me up and said, he just wants to give me a heads up that the seat that the home run landed in, that broke the shortstop home run record, was going to be moved to another part of the stadium. And I kind of laughed to myself. I'm going, what? That really doesn't matter to me. I appreciate the indicating that that's where it happened. And it kind of, that moment lives a little bit longer as a result of that. But, I wasn't sure how it was going to work out. And I was over there doing an interview in Camden Yards one time recently, and I looked out and I saw, before opening day, I saw the fence. And it looks like it's designed in there pretty well. It's interesting. I don't know how it will play, how it will feel like it plays, because if you remember, one year we moved home plate back by, 10 feet or so, which made center field and the bullpen area a lot harder to get to. And then after maybe 1 year, they decided to change it back because it's changed the way the ballpark played, maybe in a negative sort of way. So I hope it doesn't become, negative that the home run is unreachable. I always thought the Memorial Stadium, was favorable down the lines, of course. It was only 309 down the lines. And you could hit a line drive down the line that was hooking foul, but because it was only 309, it would stay fair.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to Camden Yards and it was 333, you hook a ball down the line, and you think it's got a chance, but then it has more distance to pull foul. So, I just hope that it plays fair. All the ballparks that had these big fences, and maybe Camden Yards will be considered a big fence, but think of Detroit's ballpark when it first came in. They ended up moving the fences in Detroit. And so there's so many cases. Yankee Stadium had the big cavernous left center field, and they moved that back in, to a more reachable level. So I hope it doesn't play, like the Grand Canyon. I hope it's fair for all hitters and pitchers.
We've heard the argument that the home run robbery is something that will be missed, right? It's just such a fun part of the game. And obviously it's not possible now with the wall being the height that it is in left field. Do you feel like that there's a detriment there, that just for the excitement of baseball, it's nice? We're not saying that we're going to have Mike Devereaux any longer out there to jump up and bring balls back, but that's something that's good for the entertainment value of the sport that could be missed with having a taller wall.
I always advocated, you like to have the stands closer, and I like the idea of robbing a home run or someone using their athleticism to go up on the wall. It does create a degree of excitement. So, but if you look at a place like Fenway Park, they had the big green monster. That gives a different entertainment value. That the ball hits off of that, it could carry them in many different directions. I don't know if they still had the ladders that were outside of the wall out there. They probably took those down. But it provided a uniqueness. Mm-hmm. And maybe this wall in left field will provide a uniqueness that turns out to be really good.
All right, just another couple of minutes with Cal Ripken here on Glenn Clark Radio. Cal, I got to ask you, there's all these, everybody goes to you when these big baseball topics come up because you're like the godfather of baseball. So we're going to run by the shift. It's going to be gone. It's disappearing from the game. And the shift wasn't really a part of the game for a long time when you played. What do you make of the idea that hitters just never really adapted to it, and for the health of the sport, maybe it's better that it doesn't exist?
So I missed out on this. Is this a new rule?
It's going to be coming to baseball, yes.
For sure.
Yeah, it's part of the CBA. They agreed to it. It's not in for this season, but it'll go in the future.
And so they'll outlaw the shift. I mean, I don't understand the logic of that. I mean, I think you should be able to, as someone that positioned themselves at shortstop and try to have an advantage of knowing where the ball was going to be hit and what grounds I need to cover, I think the players should be able to play anywhere they want in between the white lines. So I don't think that it's proved to be overly effective. I think trends happen in baseball, and all of a sudden this thing happens and everybody copies it. And then they use the value of analytics to say they prove it. But I think it's very difficult to prove that it's not giving up as many hits as it's taken away. But I would agree with you. The hitters have not evolved at all to the shift. They're thinking, okay, I'm not going to change my swing. And the all or nothing sort of swing, going for home runs and striking out 150 times a year, 200 times a year. That philosophy seems to have grabbed hold to a lot of organizations. But I think baseball, as it's done over its history, it'll start to go back to, you'll see some more hit and runs. You'll see some more sacrifice bunts in games because it is about the execution. And when you have tough pitching, you got to find ways to create runs absent the home run. So I think that'll come back a little bit. But I am a little disappointed that they made that a rule.
Cal, I struggle with, admittedly, because I'm sort of with you, which is, you know where the players are. Try to hit at a different place. But what you just brought up, when I grew up watching this sport, the excitement, the action of baseball, that it wasn't just guys standing up there and trying to swing for the fences every time. I hate the idea that you have to bring that back artificially, but selfishly, I kind of want that part of baseball back.
So maybe it's a temporary thing. Maybe they this is a reaction that will bring the game back to how it used to be played. I see when you watch the World Series, you watch the playoffs now, I see a more aggressive attempt to bunt a guy over or to send a guy in motion or to hit and run, or just teams that are having success now have cut down on their strikeouts a lot. The teams that you look at, I think the Dodgers are down in their strikeouts. The Houston, I think, had the most strikeouts at one point, and then they had the least, or they shifted the most, and now they shift the least.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all those trends prove out, when you're playing the game. But maybe this is the impetus that is required to make people think about the game and see the value in those other ways to score runs as opposed to swinging for the fences.
Do you like the action that comes in the extra inning rule? I have to admit to you, Cal, again, I didn't like it at first, but after seeing it and seeing all the action in the extra innings, I can't go back to the old way. This is baseball to me. I love it.
Well, here's my opinion on that. You're gifted a guy on second base.
Yep.
And in my way of thinking, when the season or the playoffs can boil down to one game, and there's many, many, many examples at the end of the year, after 162, one game separates someone that makes the playoffs and one game doesn't. To me, you want to earn each one of your wins. So I think you need to earn the guy on second base. You can't be gifted. The team then all of a sudden can bunt a guy over and then hit a short, shallow sacrifice fly, and there's a close play at the plate, and the guy scores, and then you get 3 outs and you win the game. I'd like to see them earn their base runners and earn that win a little bit more than have some sort of artificial, I guess it's called a ghost runner that you put on second base to cause the game to get over faster, I think.
All right, you're Cal Ripken and I'm not, so I want to make this very clear. I know you're right. It's selfish of me. These 17-inning games where it's 8 innings worth of guys just swinging for home runs, I'm out. I don't want to watch that any longer, Cal. I can't.
So I guess the logic is there is strategy put forth with any sort of rule.
Yep.
So if you're embracing the rule, if this is the reality of then you just have to start to figure out what's the best strategy that you can employ to get that runner in from second base and win the game. So I don't take that away from the move, and who knows, maybe it'll prove out not to be the right thing to do, but it doesn't rub me the right way.
Cal, my last one for you, and I really appreciate your time this morning. I mentioned earlier Adley's going to be up at Aberdeen this week, and everybody's excited about that because it's his path to the major leagues. Have you, I know it's been a weird couple of years with COVID and everything, have you had any opportunity at all to connect with him? There's so much pressure on this young man, and would you be interested in it? Is there advice that maybe you could give about how to handle, I mean, you weren't the number one overall pick, but you were a local prospect and a legacy, and how do you handle such intense spotlight for a player like him where there is so much expected of him in the midst of this rebuild?
Well, I mean, I think he's done it already. I mean, he's pretty grounded. I haven't had the chance to meet him. I haven't had a chance to talk to him. I mean, it would be interesting to me, to have a conversation, or if I could ever be helpful to him, then I certainly would like to be helpful to him. But I mean, I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. I think he's proved at each and every level that he can play, and he's living up to all the hype. I would have liked to seen him come up last year. He had a chance. I think he was in Double-A, then tore up Triple-A, and he had a chance to actually get his feet wet. And I know the whole thing about trying to gain an extra year, on a younger player, and hopefully that's gone.
Yep.
But I would have liked to seen, and maybe the Oriole fans too, is you look at a glimpse of the future and get a chance to see that in the end month. But they chose not to do it, but he's the real deal. He's a really good player.
Cal, you are always so giving of your time. Is there anything else I can plug for you, sir?
No, not at all.
At Cal Ripken. I know you're on Twitter. We can plug that at Cal Ripken Jr. He was one of the final holdouts, but we got him there. All it took was a global pandemic, and we got Cal Ripken to join Twitter. At Cal Ripken Jr. is how you follow him. And, of course, as I've said before, he's the man that finally got me to find a doctor again and go back and get a checkup. And I needed that kick in the butt from Cal Ripken. Cal, always appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time for us this morning. Let's chat again real soon, all right?
It's my pleasure. Be glad to. Thank you.